I'd like to introduce John Medinger from Senator Tammy Baldwin's office.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. My name is John Medinger, and I think some of you know me. I've been around the block a couple times, and in various different lives, as a state representative, as the mayor, and now as employee for U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin, and it's that capacity that I'm here today. And I think, as this gentleman said here, I used to work for Herb Cole previously, and we had some communications, and so I feel very privileged to be working for these great U.S. senators. We are in the Hmong Cultural and Community Center, and as Lauren, I want to acknowledge that I was the co-chair of the fundraising committee that built this place with former superintendent of schools Dick Swatz, and it was the old Cerise Club, and it's just been a joy to be involved in this project and to see it come to fruition. Originally, the name was the Hmong Community and Cultural Center, but it sounded like then this center was only for the Hmong community. So we changed the name to the Hmong Cultural and Community Center to make sure that it belongs to all the community, and so it's nice that you're having this meeting here today. There's a picture up here of General Vang Pao, a very young General Vang Pao that was taken to Laos. He passed away a few years ago. He was in La Crosse probably half a dozen times, and I had the pleasure of meeting him. He was the head of the Laotian military forces during the Vietnam War, and they were very strong allies with American troops and saved a lot of our American troops. I had the opportunity to also share some homemade rice whiskey with him, and it was pretty good stuff. I survived all that. I also turned 65 a couple weeks ago, so I got my Medicare card in my pocket, and become much more attuned to aging issues. In fact, my boss, my former boss, Senator Herb Cole, was the chair of the Aging Committee in the U.S. Senate, and Senator Baldwin is a member of the Aging Committee in the U.S. Senate because she knows how important these issues are for the state of Wisconsin. In addition, she serves on a number of other committees, but one is the Health Committee, Health Education, Labor and Pensions Committee, because she's very concerned about people's pensions, also railroad pensions and things like that. Before I make a couple of brief remarks on issues, I also wanted to talk about these communicating with your elected officials and how important that is. There is the old adage that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and if your politicians don't hear from you, they really are more tuned into the people they hear from than the people they don't. And I always tell the story that when I was elected mayor back in 1997, there was not even a computer in the mayor's office. There was none. And actually the mayor had a secretary. Now you'd probably call that person an administrative assistant, but she wanted to be called a secretary. She was a professional secretary. And she would get all the mail. We got a lot of mail. And when I left the office of mayor 8 years later, there was almost no mail coming in. And we had a computer, and most people were communicating directly to me through email. So it diminished a lot of the work that she had done at the start of that 8 years, and created a lot more work for me because I responded then personally to all those emails. But the other thing about these mailing stuff out to Washington, as Tom said, I think, because of these mail scares and this anthrax, and what was this last one, Ranson or Rinson or whatever, some Risen, you know, people are doctoring up letters when they send it out there. You send something out there, it may be 5 or 6 weeks before that written letter hits their office. That's why electronic communications, so far they haven't figured out how to poison those. Cybersecurity maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I'll make a few remarks and then we'll get done. I think Lauren will be glad to answer questions again. I will too. I've got a few position papers here from Senator Baldwin and statements that she has made. On the issue of Social Security, she's opposed to chain CPI. And she doesn't want Social Security dealt with in a budget. If you're going to deal with it, it ought to be a standalone position. However, that sounds like a politician, huh? However, as I think Mr. Feitlinger said here, both folks I've known from a long time ago, there's a budget. The Senate has passed a budget, the House has passed a budget, the President's introduced a budget. The Democrats actually want to go to conference committee, and the Republicans don't want to go to conference committee. And this is not partisan. I mean, it's just a fact of life, and I hope that Senator Johnson's staff was invited here today. I don't make this just a Democratic rally. But the Democrats want to go to conference to resolve the differences between the House and the Senate. And the House and the Senate Republicans have blocked that so far. You need even 60 votes in the Senate to go to a conference committee. It's very challenging environment. However, what comes up in a conference committee, nobody knows. So the point is that you want to see what the bill looks like. What's in the bill? What's in the final product? And I don't think anybody would say today how they're going to vote on a bill they haven't seen yet. And so I think if they ever do get this conference committee going, and you have all these people getting their stuff into there, I mean, who knows what would be in the final product? There could be a change CPI. Who knows? So in politics, you always have to keep your powder dry a little bit and never say never, because you may not be able to stand out there alone if the team needs you sometimes. Medicare, Senator Baldwin has been very strong in her support for Medicare. She talks about the fact that she was raised by her grandparents and how dependent they were on Medicare and what that program has done for senior citizens and since the Great Society. A lot of the stuff does go back to Franklin Roosevelt, Lyndon Johnson, and John Kennedy and some of these other things. And these are programs that have served this country well, and you certainly don't want to dismantle them, make vouchers and all that stuff. She'll never support those types of things. Senator Baldwin is a strong supporter of the Affordable Care Act, which was repealed for the 37th time in the House of Representatives yesterday. But as long as the Senate and the President are there, it's not going to be repealed. It's going to go into effect. It has, a lot of it's gone into effect already. Helped a lot of people in a lot of ways with prevention programs, keeping your kids on your health insurance until you're 26, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the full implementation is going to be starting in 2014. A lot of people are getting nervous about the implementation because of these health exchanges, and if they're going to be able to get all these millions of people registered, they're talking about hiring navigators and all that kind of stuff to help us through. Again, Governor Walker has walked away from it, so the feds are going to do the exchange here in the state of Wisconsin. And Senator Baldwin is working very, very hard to make sure this implementation is as smooth as possible so that the Affordable Care Act becomes embraced by the American people, like Medicare has become embraced by the American people. Senator Baldwin is going to introduce or co-sponsor the introduction of the Older Americans Act authorization this next week. And then finally, Noreen mentioned sequestration. We'd like to get sequestration off the table. They did take care of the air pilots. They took some care, I think, of some meat packers, meat inspection issues. And a lot of people would just like to undo sequester, but what I've heard is that they're talking now about doing it like with a rifle rather than a shotgun. And so they do a single item at a time. And I don't know how effective that's going to be, but they're going to try to undo the sequester a piece at a time rather than just get it all undone. I don't know how that's going to shake out. Again, people need to hear that this sequester is affecting lives, harming people, harming children, harming senior citizens, affecting meal programs, and maybe we can get some good things done there.